Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. This is episode number 60. We've hit the big 60. 60, a number that is associated with big birthdays and big milestones for the podcast. It's always a special episode when Clara is on, but I mean, it is our monthly catch-up episode. So in this case, we're going to be talking about everything that we watched in February. Thanks for joining me on the couch again, Clara. If you guys haven't seen our previous episode covering everything that we watched in January, that is also up. I will leave a link to it in the description box below. We're going to be talking about everything we watched in February. February was a tough month for us, I would say, in terms of... It sounded dramatic.
Yeah, that sounded really dramatic.
Sounded like we went through some big hardship. But in terms of movie watching...
Oh, you mean we didn't watch as many movies?
February was basically the complete opposite to January. January, I think we hit around 20-ish films. For some people, that's a lot. For others, they do that in like a week. We did kick the month off by watching Companion. Which was an enjoyable film. We both enjoyed it a lot. We did actually review it in the last month's episode. So if you do want to check out our thoughts on the film, be sure to check out our previous episode. But alas, we move ahead. And the first film we're going to be talking about in this episode is the film The Seed of the Sacred Fig. Okay, so I'm not sure how many people have heard of this film, but it has been nominated for Best International Film at the Oscars this year. It is originally an Iranian film, but it has production means attached to Germany, and thus it is the German nomination at this year's Academy Awards. So we went to see this pretty close to the start of the month in the first week. And for those of you who don't know what it's about, I'm going to read a little synopsis because I'm not sure everyone would have heard about this film. The Seed of the Sacred Fig. So, investigating Judge Iman grapples with paranoia and political unrest in Tehran, which is the capital of Iran. When his gun vanishes, he suspects his wife and daughters imposing draconian measures that strain family ties as societal rules crumble. Okay, so this was a film we checked out one weekend. It is a close to 3-hour in runtime film, and like I just mentioned, it is an originally an Iranian film. The film takes place in Tehran in Iran. The backstory of how this film got made is kind of amazing. We will go into that in a little bit, but just straight up, first thoughts on the film.
I thought the film was brilliant in so many ways. I think the way they managed to sort of mesh together the personal internal life of the family unit and everything that's going on in the country at the time was astounding. The way they did it without preaching, without sort of having to do lots of exposition. There was no sort of, and in this state this happened. It was all sort of within the lives of all these different members of the family and intercut with real footage of the protests, which really made for, but this is footage that the children and the family is watching as well on their phones and things like that. So it doesn't feel apart from the narrative. Yeah. You really feel that you're with these people experiencing, what's going around them on the news via their phones, as well as sort of through their friends and through themselves and their own experiences. And it was just, I think it was so touching just to see how that affected this sort of everyday person, the everyday family. And also then the differing views of the different generations and the different genders inside the family as well. I thought that was really powerful, that although you might be one family unit, doesn't mean you all think alike. Yeah,
absolutely. I think I 100% second that, even though this is very much like a hard-hitting political drama about the climate in the Middle East, specifically Iran. You learn and you're given context through this family, these characters that you follow right the way through the film. The film's approach to telling this story is very much, it's really focused on, the family itself. You don't really get much of the stuff that's happening around them, aside from, the real life footage, which Clara just mentioned, that you see these daughters, are seeing firsthand via social media. So essentially, you learn about the political context through these characters and get to experience it through their eyes first and foremost, which I found to be a really, really effective way to essentially get into what the film does more in the second half, which is this much more of this this family drama aspect. So I think it's a really, really powerful film. I would say it is very long. Like I mentioned, it's close to 3 hours in length, and the first kind of half of it is a lot of this political context, who's who in the family, what their different roles are, the kind of differing ideologies between, like you said, the generation of the kids, the two daughters, and their parents, and how their family is ultimately affected by this political situation. Specifically, the dad, who is in a very kind of volatile situation with his job that has, many ties to this. And like the synopsis said, his gun goes missing, and this causes a huge sort of uproar, and the family starts to crumble, and their relationships are put on the line, they're put to the test. And this was a pretty heavy watch on I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, but I thought it was pretty brilliant. I think the film kind of started not to lose me, but I do think the first kind of half of the film was a lot stronger.
I definitely agree.
Than the second half.
Yeah.
The second half does go on a bit, and you aren't really sure where the direction the film is going to go.
Because I hadn't really read much other than the making of it. I hadn't read much about the actual synopsis or what was going to be happening in the film. So I was almost sort of blindsided by the direction it took. At the start of it, it was a very sort of intense, nail-biting insight into what it would be like to be there during these protests, watching sort of innocent people get beaten up and taken away, and what you do when you sort of have to stay silent inside a family. Like, it was all, and members that were following people that are going missing and things like that, and it is very intense. And then we sort of get this sort of situation with the gun, and that sort of comes in halfway through, and it just threw me off a little bit. And then I wasn't quite as invested in the whole situation with the gun as I was sort of everything else that was going on in the first half. So I do think the tone did shift a little bit towards the end. But that being said, the whole situation with the gun was really interesting. It showed a lot about the different characters and their relationship, and when the point where the father's job is put on the line, what does that mean about how he treats his family and his daughters, and like what is it that he's sort of that views as his top priority. Exactly.
I completely agree. And like I kind of just mentioned, I did a really poor job of explaining it, but the choice to basically have this entire story take place from a domestic point of view. You're essentially in this family's house with them for most of the film, and a lot of the information about the political climate is withheld from you as an audience member, and that feeling of just being trapped kind of with these characters in this one environment for the majority of the film, I felt definitely intensified a lot of the moments quite effectively. I thought it was really interesting because you had literally no idea what the film was about at all, whereas I had read like a couple lines or two, and I'd heard about it from Isyan about what the film is about briefly. So I knew it was this whole gun aspect, the gun goes missing, was going to be a key moment in the film. So I was almost not waiting for that to happen, but I wasn't so thrown off by the shift in tone as you go into the second half. But all in all, it was a really, really solid film. And definitely, if we hadn't seen the film we saw last night, which we'll get to in a sec, I would say that I would have really wanted this to win for Best International Film. I've only seen this and Emilia Perez, but of course, if you...
But I also, I'll speak about this a little bit more when I speak about No Other Land. But I think we often think of filmmaking as purely a sort of artistic endeavor. That and it isn't an art, but that it is just for sort of, something for people's entertainment, something just sort of to maybe a bit of escapism, that kind of stuff. But I do think it's important to remember that film can be so much more than that. That it can be this, through films like I'm Still Here, through Seed of the Sacred Fig, through No Other Land. It is, it shows something more than that. It can really, I have no experience in any of these kind of places or with any of these kind of themes, and yet I can deeply empathize with these people on screen, and I don't think there's a better medium for doing something like that. And that is one of the reasons I think film can be so powerful, is to show like something through that way.
Absolutely.
And I think we don't really get enough of these films. I think, I feel like I think it's so important generally for sort of the world and how people can empathize with each other. But also I just, I want to see different people's lives. I don't need to be in an echo chamber all the time. So I would implore people to check out these films just to sort of just see life from a different angle and just to experience something really, really different.
100%. And I completely agree with that. I'd also think it's a good point to mention that, films like The Seed of the Sacred Fig and I'm Still Here, you can tell. I mean, I don't know much about the director of I'm Still Here, but I know that the director, I can't remember his name, he fled Iran and this film was shot in secret.
Yeah.
So the story of how this film came to be and how we're finally able to see it is astonishing. And I urge you to go and check out and read the story behind this production. So I think what I'm trying to say is I 100% agree. I think it's really important that we hear all these different perspectives and all these different stories ultimately. But I also want to say that when you watch films like The Seed of the Sacred Fig and I'm Still Here, you can tell that it's from filmmakers who have a story themselves to tell. It means a lot to them personally, as opposed to filmmakers who go to make films just for the sake of it being politically charged or different or whatnot. And I think the difference between
doing something for a trend and doing something
absolutely
meaningful
this is what I'm saying. So the difference in this category of international films, films like I'm Still Here and The Seed of the Sacred Fig versus a film like Emilia Perez, when I watch those first two films, I really feel like there is a voice in there, a real story and a narrative being driven, and you can feel like it is essentially almost someone's life kind of on the line. Whereas Emilia Perez, I just didn't get anything. And I don't want to take this as an opportunity to shit on Emilia Perez anymore.
And not to take it too political, but it's sort of a political episode.
This is going to be a political episode.
I think that is what you've just hit on, is the importance of diversity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that you can't have someone that isn't Mexican making a film about the situation of people disappearing in Mexico, because it will be farcical.
I think you can.
It will be ridiculous if it's treated with respect.
I think you can if you do the research, if you treat it with respect, exactly.
I did admire Martin Scorsese's
Killers of the Flower Moon. Yep.
He really tried, and I know he really rewrote the script to really try and include and be respectful to indigenous communities and things like that. I'm not saying you full stop can't. I just think the kind of raw and really impactful and really honest stories we're seeing from things like Seed of the Sacred Fig and I'm Still Here, I just don't think you do get from directors and from creators that haven't lived those experiences.
Definitely.
And I'm not saying that if you don't live those experiences, you can't tell these stories. I think you can with the right research and the right respect.
Yeah.
I just don't think you'll see the same thing at all. And I think if you want to see more of those stories and experience more of other people's lives and get outside your comfort zone and your bubble and see the world of filmmaking, I think that's why we need to be watching more international films and seeing more from those people and increasing, sort of trying to invest more in diversifying our base. We don't need the same stuff all over and again. But yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Well said. So that was our little our D&I championing in film there. And it doesn't stop there, because we are going to be talking about a couple more films that are somewhat politically charged, I would say. And speaking of which, do you think this is a good time to actually talk about No Other Land? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a film I actually watched very recently.
I haven't seen yet.
It's a documentary about it's about Palestine. It's about a village on the West Bank that is basically being destroyed, and they're trying to get these people out of there and things like that. And it's a guy that lived there, an activist, sort of taking this, on the ground footage and his relationship with an Israeli journalist. And it's short, and it's an hour and a half, and it is so powerful. And obviously there's just, there's so many unbelievably awful things you could say about the genocide in Palestine, but this specific one, just someone's specific village and specific life, just done in so much care and detail and honesty, and not just overtly, again, it's so interesting to see sort of how things play with the Israeli journalist, but not in a necessarily, and it would be within their rights to be very hateful, but not necessarily in a hateful way, just a purely honest way. And I think, and I thought it was so powerful and really amazing, and I really hope it wins the Oscar. Also, like we said before about the struggles to make something. This is a time where journalists are being kicked out of Palestine. This is a time where, people aren't being allowed to collect footage. This is, they still haven't got distribution in the US because, people, they don't want people to see this film. So I do think it's so important, again, that people see it and people watch it and people understand. And it's not it's, again, like I said, there's so many horrific things you could talk about. But it's harrowing and awful, but you know, it is something you can watch, and I think everyone should watch it. I think it's really important and yeah, really powerful.
I'll definitely check it out as soon as possible as well. And it's been also nominated as well, hasn't it?
It's
been
for best documentary.
Yes,
I hope it wins.
Yes.
It should win.
Yeah.
Then maybe you'll get distribution. Who knows?
Yeah. No, well said. Definitely going to check that. Did you watch that this week? Was it?
Yeah, I literally watched it like yesterday.
And you didn't invite me? No. So up next came the Friday, which was Valentine's Day. When I tell you, when people started asking me, what did you do for Valentine's Day? I went to the barbers actually the next morning on the 15th, and Stel, my barber, was like, so Dylan, what did you do for Valentine's Day? And I was like, bro, I went to see a film with Clara called Memoir of a Snail. Honestly, he was laughing for about 5 minutes straight. Like, bro, you didn't actually watch a film about a snail. Memoir of a Snail. Gosh. So, what can I say about Memoir of a Snail? So, it's an Australian. I think it's Australian. Yeah, I think it's an Australian stop motion animated film, coming from the director Adam Elliott, who has done films in the past which I haven't seen. Films like Mary and Max. That seems to be a big one. But he returns this year with Memoir of a Snail. And essentially, the film tells the story of what's her name? Grace. Forcibly separated from her twin brother when they are orphaned, a melancholic misfit learns how to find confidence within herself amid the clutter of misfortunes and everyday life. So I mentioned this in my Oscars prediction video. I don't know if it's going to win Best Animated Feature. I think I still probably go to maybe the Wild Robot or Flow. But I kind of want this film to win.
I haven't seen Flow, but I would 100% pick this over Wild Robot.
Yes, haven't seen Flow yet. I think this is really weird and cool and different, and it manages to juggle so many different tones from from complete elation to pure dread and sadness to it's whimsical in nature. It's got a lot of dark humor in there. It's also a film not for kids. It's for adults, so please don't go and take your children to go see this for sure. And similar to the films that we've just spoken about, but for different reasons, there is definitely a real voice and style present with this film that I don't think I've ever quite seen before. And I haven't watched too many stop motion films, but they can be a bit like Marmite for a lot of people. But I thought this was utterly like fascinating to watch. And from an animated perspective, you can speak more on this, but I thought it was brilliant. I thought the voice acting was fantastic. Sarah Snook, I think, voices the main character, Grace. And essentially it is, you follow this character from when she's a child to all the way essentially to her deathbed supposedly, and she recalls a lot of the the events that take place, her relationships over time, a lot of the crazy shit that she goes on. And I was both laughing, came very close to crying at some points, and I just kind of had a blast with it, really.
Yeah, no, I think like you were saying about stop motion animation being kind of Marmite for people.
Yeah.
I'm an animator, so it's a bit sad that I'm saying this, but I have always found stop motion animation to be very on the brink of giving me kind of the creeps.
It is very creepy. Absolutely, it's very creepy.
Something about it that's like almost real, but not real.
Yeah.
That really I'm not. But having said that, there are some great stop motion films out there. 100%. Don't discard it as an art form. It is amazing.
Yeah. Most recently, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
I love that.
Absolutely
film.
incredible.
Absolutely love that film. Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. One of my favorite films of the past. Anyway. But yeah, I thought this was really good, and definitely the style of stop motion really, really complements the memoir so well. It's sort of like a storybook, but this sort of dark and twisted storybook.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very adult, very sort of, it deals with themes of death and depression and lots very in a very, very good and insightful way, but also paired with the stop motion, it just really works.
Yeah.
That sort of jumps through time, using sort of the snail allegory for sort of hoarding. And all of that. It was just really great.
Yeah, it has a lot of personality, and I don't think it's going to be a film for everyone. Yeah. But I do think if you love animation, if you love weird stories, if you enjoy dark humor, if you like being kind of on the brink between laughing and crying, this is definitely a great film for you. Yeah.
The most horrific thing can happen, and then you realize they've just said a joke that's actually hilarious. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
laughing.
exactly. It is really much. It is really that kind of film.
Yeah.
For sure. So I would urge anyone who's
Yeah.
vaguely interested to go check it out. I would definitely be trying to check out Adam. I think it's Adam. Yeah, Adam Elliott's previous films. I want to say he's definitely a filmmaker who I want to check out more for sure. The next day, the pair of us met up with some friends, Chris, Panwa, etc. We went to see Captain America: Brave New World, which I have reviewed on the podcast previously. It will also be linked in the description box below. But as someone who isn't a huge fan of Marvel, some quick thoughts.
Yeah, I was not a fan of this film. Let me not lie. You say not a huge Marvel fan, just to like
Give context.
To give up context. Like, I did for a time love the Marvel films, like a lot of the mainstream public. You know, I went on opening night to see Endgame. Like, I did have a great time, but I'm not like, yeah, fuck off. Sorry. I'm not like a live or die Marvel fan. That's what I'll say on that. But yeah, no, I wasn't a fan of this film. I thought
But this is what I'm saying. This is why I think that you might be one of the best people to review the film, because you don't actually have that bias, but instead you can kind of look at the film for what it is.
I feel like when I was prepared for it to be awful, like sort of Ant-Man and
The Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, sort of level of terrible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that bad. So when I came out of the cinema, I was like, okay, I stayed awake. Like, that's a win. But looking back on it, I just think it was really bad. I thought all the personal relationships were cheesy, underdeveloped, and poor. Like, I didn't feel much from
Sam Wilson. Yeah.
I didn't feel much Sam Wilson. The character development wasn't really at all there for me. Like, I get that he's trying to live up to Captain America, but that can't be your whole character. I'm sorry, it just can't. The whole political drama. What was the political drama? It was like, oh, we need to work together.
I forgot this is technically has a political
undertone.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, we need to work together. Oh, well done. No shit, Sherlock. Yeah. Like, I mean, to be fair, some people could take lessons in working together, but that's besides the point. But no, there was no political drama. That was like a sort of pretense at a political drama just to make things interesting. Didn't work.
Before you continue roasting the film, I do want to say, like,
sorry,
it's clear that you didn't enjoy the film, but were there any aspects that you liked? And if not, then that's fine. We'll move on. But
I don't know. Like, I think with all these films, they know how to sort of keep the pace up. Do you know what I'm saying? They edit pacily. They know how to keep, there's always a new plot point coming in, and it's definitely over-explained. The whole Netflix, we have to state exactly what we're doing at each point. It's so annoying. Netflix. I know it's not Netflix, but it was a rule by Netflix that you have to like state at each point what's going on, so they explain everything all the time. But like, it keeps things moving. It goes and goes. Harrison Ford's performance was great.
He's Harrison Ford.
Yeah, as was actually, to be fair, most people, there was no performance that I was like, that's awful. I thought everyone did really well. But yeah, it just wasn't a film.
But it is a Marvel film at the same time, like, so,
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it should get into like some deep political drama. I'm just saying that just didn't really work for me. And that coupled with zero character development and not the best action I've ever seen, I was a bit like,
fine. Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Sorry.
There you go, guys.
Stop roasting the film.
Clara's gone on, how many rants of this episode? We're almost there, almost done, don't worry. Up next, we rewatched La La Land, but this time with your younger brother who had never seen it.
Yeah.
For some context, guys, Arthur, Clara's younger brother, 16 years old. I'm basically taking him on his on a little bit of a film bro training. So he's hitting all the film bro essentials. So like Fight Club and the Batman and whatever it might be. And obviously La La Land is a film that sits right on there, not just in film bros list, but just in general. I think it's it's one of the most, I would say, iconic films of the last decade or so. La La Land is a film that has quite a lot of History? Well, yeah, I guess La La Land has played somewhat, I won't say integral, but it's played a part in me and Yu's relationship, technically, right?
Yeah, definitely. So the first memory I have of Dylan is...
a bumbling idiot.
is him speaking to one of our colleagues about how much he liked La La Land, and me coming in and going, I didn't get the point of that film.
That's essentially how me and Clara's relationship
that was our
started.
First interaction.
We had basically probably 5 seconds debate, an exchange about why I think La La Land is incredible and a masterpiece, and everybody there was like, yeah, it's all right, or it's not that good, and Clara was like, I don't think it's that great, and whatnot. And I was like astounded, because obviously as someone who plays one of the leads, that hit quite close to home. So I took it very personally. But anyhow, nobody, not a single person on this planet will take away my love for the film. But then eventually we started dating, and this film somewhat grew in its significance.
Yeah, actually, can I just say, before we were dating, while we were just still talking, you sent me a video essay on Why La La Land is amazing.
I sent Panwa back in the day had done a Why La La Land is a masterpiece video essay. So I thought, I was having a lot of back and forth with Clara about why the film is incredible. So I was like, you know what? This is my friend Panwa's channel. Check out this video. It will tell you more or less everything you need to know about how I feel about the film. And if you still have further questions, you can hit me up. So essentially, I sent it to her. So are we giving Panwa credit here for a video?
No, we can't give someone else credit. This is too long.
So yeah, go on. So you watched the video.
So I watched the video, and I think this is.
I'll link that down below as well. It's a really good
video essay. Yeah, and we got talking more and more about it, and I was like, yeah, I see Panwa's points about why the filmmaking is amazing. For me, it was always that I felt like the storylines were a bit shallow, and I just didn't really get it. But yeah, and then we watched it again in concert.
Yeah, so this is so we were, I want to say, a year into dating.
Yeah,
around about a year into dating, and the Royal Albert Hall in London was doing La La Land concert with Justin Hurwitz, the composer, conducting, and I was like, absolutely, we're going to see this. And you didn't know though, did you?
No, I think I did know that we were going to go see it.
What, La La Land in concert? I don't think I never tell you what we're going to go see. If it's
yeah, but you told me like a day before, not like.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. And then, sorry, go ahead.
And we went to see it again, and I think it really hit an emotional chord with me that it hadn't in the past. And I think there was lots of reasons for that. I think firstly, when I was younger, because we've spoken about this before on the podcast, I didn't used to watch that many films. Like I watched good films or great films, but I never just watched everything that came out.
Yeah.
And having started to do that with you, I feel like I have more appreciation for what makes a great film.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So La La Land is clearly a great film. And I do think it now hits a lot more emotional chords with me, being someone that's trying to make it creatively and in a relationship with someone else that's trying to make it creatively.
Right, yeah.
And I think it does change the way I watch the film, and it definitely affects me a lot more now than it used to.
Yeah. So yeah, we rewatched it again last weekend with your brother. I wanted to basically sing along and recite every line I could, but of course have to be respectful to newcomers.
The most emotional scene when Emma Stone is like doing her audition.
Yeah.
So it's like, Dylan, like, let out. Like,
to the bush, who dream.
And it's like the most emotional scene, and I'm there like, oh my God, what's happening? And he does that, and my brother just starts creasing.
It was a struggle to get through that entire film without singing a little bit, and then that just sort of came out. But yeah, there you go. La La Land's a masterpiece. There's another reason for you as to why it is as such. But then we come to the sixth final film of February that we watched, which was last night, and we finally saw, now it's been distributed in the UK, I'm Still Here, which is a Brazilian film about the political unrest in the 70s in Rio, specifically, Brazil, specifically Rio. It stars Fernanda Torres, whose work I wasn't familiar with before, probably because I haven't seen that many Brazilian films aside from City of God. Yeah, I'll do a little plot synopsis so we get a little more context. So in the early 1970s, the military dictatorship in Brazil reaches its height. The Paiva family, Rubens, Eunice, and their first 5 children live in a beachside house in Rio, open to all their friends. One day, Rubens is taken for questioning and does not return. I'll let you take the lead on this one, because this one clearly struck a nerve with you.
Yeah, I can't lie. I was crying from like the beginning to the end of this film.
But basically, we were sitting and watching the film, and at one point in the film, I like moved my hand, and my hand was covered in like tears and snot.
No, snot.
There was snot.
Just lying.
And I was like, thanks.
Just lying. Oh my God, where even to begin with this film? I feel like I definitely was very emotionally shaken after it. And yeah, I was definitely crying from sort of the point at which the father leaves to the end of the film. I thought the way, again, they did the political situation through the family was amazing. Yeah. And specifically through the sort of mother of the family. I thought her performance, Fernanda Torres' performance, was incredible.
Oh yeah.
So incredible. I know she won't, but I hope she wins Best
I
Actress.
hope that there's a surprise and she actually takes it, because I know she took one of the Golden Globes for it.
But yeah.
I think. Seriously, after having watched that film last night, I'm so happy I did before we watch the Oscars tomorrow night, as of when we're shooting this episode. I hope that there is a surprise and she actually ends up taking it. I know it's the kind of Best Actress fight is kind of between Mikey Madison and Demi Moore, and I think. Honestly, at this stage, I don't even know. This is just another twist in the story.
I thought her performance was incredible.
So
the way she's clearly such a proper, polite mother. She wants everything to be in order. She's, cooking the perfect souffle, taking care of note of where all the children are, making sure they're all happy, playing backgammon with her husband. She's definitely sort of the most...
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about her as a character, as a mother, is, and specifically about Fernanda Torres' performance, is this is almost like the complete opposite of something like a Demi Moore or Mikey Madison's very kind of maximalist performance. This performance it really, really sits and stays with you all throughout the film, because she's not making these huge gestures of big movements. A lot of her character is struggling to find that balance between, trying to find her husband, who's now been sort of lost in this, incredibly, volatile political situation in Brazil, but also trying to, keep her children happy, at ease, have them not ask too many questions, and trying to find that balance. And I felt like, in terms of portraying motherhood and the struggle of a mother, she was able to do that so well, just through her face alone. The amount of suppressed emotion that she kind of holds,
I was going for.
Is really, really moving and powerful. And I thought she was just absolutely terrific performance there.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that she's such a classic, in control, needs to be in control of everything mother, and that's fine before everything goes wrong, and then everything goes wrong and she realizes she has to balance everything. And it's just watching how she sort of, like you said, has to hold in all those emotions and stay proper and stay polite. It's interesting, each time something sort of goes terribly wrong in her life, she's still putting on the perfect face.
Oh yeah, there are moments in which you want her to scream, and there's one moment where she does,
and it's heartbreaking.
And it's insane, but a lot of the time you just want to throw things at the screen, and you're so worked up about it.
But the bank is denying her withdrawal of money, and she's like, oh, we must come over for dinner, or things like that, and you're like, oh my god, this guy's denying you your money.
I honestly, I began to, I was like, how much can one person really take, and at what point is she gonna snap? And
and it's just those moments were just, I thought, so powerful and so insane. And I think it's I thought it was incredible. And just to see again how the political situation affects a family, and how not speaking about something, is what you were saying as well about Seed of the Sacred Fig, how quite often when things go wrong, trying to keep certain family members or the children sort of in the dark, and how that affects them, and how much they do clearly know, even when kept in the dark. I think it was really interesting and really powerful in this one as well.
Yeah, and it's about so many things, but also how it kind of tackles generational trauma, and the film really, really moved me. And it's not it's not told very conventionally. It's quite a slow burn. I thought it was kind of the perfect balance between a conventional film and a slow burn. It sits right in the middle between there. It's shot really well. It's shot beautifully. There's a lot of I think it's shot on film, and there's a lot of kind of Super 8 style footage thrown in there as well. I thought it was brilliant.
And I just think the way they sort of, and I think again, it's a story that we don't necessarily hear a lot about, especially maybe in the UK. That when we think about dictatorships, we're often thinking about the Middle East, or we're thinking about the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany. We're not thinking about a lot of other ones. And it's just so interesting to see those patterns repeated, no matter what the dictatorship, the sort of disappearance of people, the torture, the imprisonment, all of that kind of stuff. And I think, again, it's so important and powerful to have a film that's so honest about that, but so personal about that lived experience as well, especially now more than ever, when people sort of have forgotten what a dictatorship really means. And I just thought that was so powerful, something different that I haven't seen before, and told in the most sort of beautiful, relatable, tragic way. I think it's amazing.
And similar to The Seed of the Sacred Fig is the idea that you're experiencing these events through these characters, and they themselves don't have many answers. They don't have the information. So you're left there, you're withheld from so much, so many answers. And it can be at times an incredibly frustrating, mind-boggling experience. And that's exactly what I'm Still Here was. And I think it was brilliant. I really want it to win for Best International. Do I think it's going to win? Probably not. But hey, one can hope. But yeah, that is more or less everything that we watched in the month of February. Do let us know what you managed to check out this past month, as well as any thoughts you have on any of the films that we've just discussed. Thanks, Clara, for joining me on this episode. Thanks, guys, for watching, listening, and we will catch you very soon in the next episode of the Popcorn Podcast. Cheers.